Vandana Shiva tem contribuído de forma fundamental para mudar a prática e paradigmas de agricultura e alimentação. Vandana Shiva preside a Comissão sobre o Futuro da Alimentação Humana, instituído pela região da Toscana, na Itália. Ela é membro do Conselho de Administração do Fórum Internacional sobre Globalização e membro do Comitê Gestor da Campanha Popular Indianos contra a OMC. A senhora Vandana Shiva faz parte do Conselho Nacional de Padrões Orgânicas da Índia, foi nomeada para o Conselho Consultivo Nacional da Controladoria Geral de Contas para o período de 2013 a 2017. Também trabalha para os governos estaduais para a promoção de agricultura biológica. Em 1982, fundou a Fundação de Pesquisa para a Ciência, Tecnologia e Ecologia. Em 87, criou o Movimento para a Proteção de Sementes, Bancos Comunitários de Sementes e Soberania das Sementes como base para a soberania alimentar e comida de verdade. Vandana Shiva já treinou mais de 1 milhão de agricultores. Foi convidada pelo Ministério de Bem-Estar de Mulheres e Crianças para organizar o Mulheres da Índia, para colocar a agricultura orgânica e a soberania alimentar nas mãos das mulheres. Com vocês, Vandana Shiva.
My dear brothers and sisters from Brazil, it's such a joy to be here with you and witness food democracy at work. Because that's what you are shaping. When I saw the conference title, Real Food, Healthy and Adequate Food for the country and the city, I felt a deep resonance because that's exactly what I work on. On real food, grown by real people, serving the needs of real people. We have a domination of an agriculture that is not a food system. It's not a food system because it's not taking care of nourishment. It's not taking care of nourishment of the soil. It is based on robbery of the soil, which is why 75% of the soils of the world are degraded, desertified, polluted. It is a robbery of the wealth of our farmers. Now, for about 30 years, I've been looking at industrial agriculture, and I started in '84 because of the terrible disaster in Bhopal, where a pesticide plant leaked and killed 3,000 people immediately, 30,000 since then, and hundreds of thousands are being born crippled even today, more than 30 years after the gas leak. I do not call Bhopal a disaster and as an accident, because all the agrotoxins, all the pesticides in agriculture have their origins in war. They were designed to kill people. They began as poison gases and nerve gases to be used in the concentration camps or in the war itself. And after the wars were over, those who had got used to selling poisons to kill as war chemicals just retooled them as agri-chemicals and totally changed agriculture, creating false narratives that without agri-chemicals we can't grow food. Now without GMOs we can't grow food. Without corporations we can't grow food. But corporations don't bring us food, they bring us toxics. They bring us poisons, they bring us disease. They rob us of our nutrition. The first level at which the nutrition is robbed and food becomes unreal is by robbing us of diversity. While I was waiting, they served me a fruit drink, which I don't recognize. And that's how it should be all around the world, because nature has given us so much diversity. And in every part of the world, there's a richness of local food cultures based on the local diversity. We used to eat more than 10,000 plant species. Today, the only thing that's being cultivated and spreading are 4 GMO crops. Even rice and wheat have been pushed to the back burner. Corn, soya, canola, and cotton. Why are they spreading? Because the only reason we have GMOs is so the companies can collect royalties. I was at a meeting where they honestly laid it out in 1987, before there were GMOs in the world. They said we must have GMOs because we can't make enough money selling chemicals now. But if we lock farmers into buying seed, then our profits are limitless. And the aim was to make every farmer buy seed for every season all across the world. That's the day I took a pledge to work for the freedom of seed and the freedom of farmers. That's when I started Navdanya, and we have created 120 community seed banks in India. But not just the 120 community seed banks. We have also resisted every law that would take away the fundamental rights of farmers to save, exchange seed, and the rights of eaters. Real food can only come from real seed. Real seed has 3 qualities. First, it's renewable, it reproduces, it multiplies. One seed can become 10 seeds, or 100 seeds, or 1,000 seeds, or 1,000,000 seeds. The family of crops which I love, the millets, which are called inferior grains in the agriculture literature, but are much more nutritious. We could have 400 times the food in the world if we were growing millets. The reason they're called millets is because one seed gives you 1,000,000 seeds. That's what's common to the finger millet and the barnyard millet and the horsetail millet. And they're so drought resistant that with a few drops of rain, they'll give you food. No irrigation, no chemicals, generosity of the highest kind. The second quality of good real seed is it gives you nourishment. After all, our ancestors weren't breeding without thinking of how much more quality, taste, nutrition they were adding to food. And so the brilliance of Indian farmers to have taken one grass and turned it into 200,000 varieties of rice. In our seed banks, we have saved more than 4,000 varieties of rice. Red rice and purple rice and black rice and aromatic rices and rices that can tolerate a flood and grow 18 feet tall and can tolerate the salt when the cyclones come. And 70% of our rices grow without irrigation. They are what we call rain-fed. So all of this talk of rice is a major cause of greenhouse gases is part of an attempt to wipe out rice cultivation, because all rice cultivation is in the hands of small farmers across large parts of the world. And the third quality of real seed bred by real farmers is resilience. We do not breed for vulnerability. We do not breed in a way that one drought comes and the crop gets wiped out, or one untimely rain and the crop collapses. This last season at harvest time, we had untimely rains in India. And farmers call me from all parts of India to say, they all call me elder sister. I'm old enough to be everyone's elder sister now. And they say, Didi, we used old seeds, we did organic farming, our crop did not get damaged. And all the green revolution varieties with the chemical fertilizers and vulnerability were wiped out. So when your diversity goes, your nutrition goes. First, because we need different crops to be sustainable in our fields, and we need a diversity of crops to give us a balanced nutrition. But chemical agriculture, industrial agriculture, is based on what I call the monoculture of the mind. Chemicals that came from war had to be applied to agriculture. When it's applied to agriculture, you can't have 20 kinds of crops in a field. You have to have one crop adapted to that chemical. So monocultures and external chemical inputs go hand in hand. That's why industrial agriculture drives out diversity, and with it drives out nutrition. But within the crops itself, it robs us of nutrition. I know this very, very closely in the case of wheat. So the Green Revolution was first brought to India in 1965-66. Today the land of Punjab is on fire. It was on fire in '84, which was the second reason that prompted me to look at agriculture. It's on fire again because 80% of the GMO BT cotton has been wiped out with the attack of a white fly, which was never a pest of cotton before the genetic modification. Wheat in Punjab today has so little nutrition that is being rejected. Meantime, the old varieties we have saved, and whenever I go to train farmers, I tell them three things. Save your seeds, they are not inferior. It's corporate propaganda that called our seeds primitive seeds, that called our languages primitive, that called our cultures primitive, and this is particularly for the amazing indigenous people of this land. They called our wonderful foods coarse grains. They called our processing coarse. So we were always primitive, backward, coarse, and I have called this the racism in food, the colonization of our food. Surely it has to be racism to celebrate everything that is nutritionally empty as progress and improved, and to call everything that's nutritionally rich as primitive. We have to change those meanings. So when I was traveling 10 years ago in Madhya Pradesh, I told them to save their wheats and grow organically and find your own markets. Don't depend on the global market, which can only trade in 4 commodities. And these commodities do not feed anybody. 70% of the food we eat, even today, comes from small farms. And small farms only use 30% of the land. Industrial agriculture, which is grabbing land in the Amazon, it is grabbing land in the savannas in Argentina, that agriculture produces only 30% of the food we eat. And of the corn and soya, which is being genetically modified in the name of feeding the world, only 10% goes to human food directly. 90% GMO corn and soya is going for biofuel and animal feed. And I really believe this movement that you all have shaped, this movement about which your president and your minister referred, that they take it so seriously, they stop building a soya republic in Brazil and make it hundreds and thousands of truly free communities, growing biodiversity and growing nutrition and health. So these farmers listen to me, they save their old seed. We've now found out the old varieties that were called primitive had 14% protein. The farmers are saying we eat half the amount because it's so full of nutrition. Instead of 4 chapatis, we eat bread made like that. Instead of 4, we eat 2. And because those who buy from us also eat half, they're more than happy to pay us double the price for the quality and the nourishment. And even while this talk goes on that we are primitive, our seeds are primitive, our food cultures are primitive and should be wiped away for junk food and poison food, those same companies steal our precious grains. I had to fight Monsanto because it patented our old wheat varieties. Now, a lot of talk is there these days about gluten allergies to wheat. So many people are allergic to wheat today. But wheat itself doesn't cause allergies. It's the industrial breeding and the industrial processing that is leading to gluten allergies. Now, because India's breeding has been done by farmers, we have varieties that don't contribute to gluten allergies. And Monsanto, greedy to grab anything it can anywhere in the world, thought it would patent it. And as soon as we came to know, we challenged that patent. The patent was for the seed, for the grain, and for all products anywhere in the world. And in the patent application was how big the market of gluten-free wheat would be. So we challenged it. We fought it, as we fought the piracy of neem, and we fought the piracy of the basmati, the aromatic rice from my valley. And in all 3 cases that we took to the patent offices, we have won, and the giant corporations have lost. Since agribusiness is only interested in profits by selling costly inputs, now including seed, and buying cheap commodities to maximize their margins of profit and have more control over our food and our lives, they aren't bothered about our health. In fact, they're more than happy if we get diseases. Because the same companies that brought us war chemicals turned into agrochemical industry, turned into the biotechnology and genetic engineering industry, but the same companies are also the pharmaceutical industry. So Syngenta sells seeds and sells us the poisons, as Novartis, after they've given us cancer, and the cancer burden in India alone today is $300 billion of cost borne by poor people. $300 billion. And Syngenta's pharmaceutical arm is Novartis. They even tried to sue the government of India to say you've got to change your patent laws so we can have a monopoly and sell the medicine that is today sold for 10,000 rupees for a month of treatment for 250,000 rupees a month of treatment. And when our court said, but you are talking about letting people die, and the lawyer of Novartis said, for us only 15% of India matters, the 15% that can pay those high prices. So written into their thinking is an ecocide of the diversity of this planet. That's why they don't care that the bees are disappearing. They don't care soil organisms are going. They don't care the biodiversity of crops have gone. They don't care if people fall sick and die. As long as they can make money out of it, they'll do it, and if you don't have the money, it's all right. Because extermination is the logic of this system. These chemicals, when they began in war, the idea was to exterminate the other. The other then was the Jew or the enemy across the border. Today, extermination is all species. When you think of the way they talk about insects, you know, we have a beautiful conservation farm where we save seeds and we do teaching. And I feel so happy every year there are more friendly insects that come on their own. Wonderful spiders and ladybird beetles that are doing the work of controlling pests. You read a textbook from the industry about pest control. Every insect in the world is competing with us. You read their books on biodiversity. I'll give you a statement. This was during the negotiations of the Convention on Biological Diversity. And since those days, of course, I've been fighting against their pushing GMOs. And it was a Monsanto CEO who said, we have found such a smart technology, and they were talking about Roundup resistant GMOs. We found such a smart technology that it prevents the weeds from stealing the sunshine. First of all, they aren't weeds, they're foods. They're just diversity of foods. I've done surveys with Indian women, 250 species of uncultivated crops. If you go to the Amazon, I don't know what the list will be like of the wild foods that have supported the indigenous people. And I have never seen indigenous cultures anywhere suffering from disease as long as they weren't infected from outside. Their own diets took care of their health. So for Monsanto, all the diversity outside the corn and soya and the cotton and canola is a weed. Exterminate it. But it's food for us. Some of the most nourishing, nutritious foods are things like the amaranth that grows voluntarily in our fields. But when your agriculture is biodiversity rich, which it has to be in agroecology, because agroecology is about allowing the ecological functions of nature to play their role in renewing soil fertility, in controlling pests and controlling unnecessary overgrowth by one species. Agroecology based on diversity produces more food. We have surveyed 200 of our farms. And what we did was calculate how much they're producing of what crop, convert it into nutrition, all the nutrition every plant gives, and across the board, 2 to 3 times more nutrition in an agroecological farm than in a chemical farm. We could feed 2 Indias if we went agroecological, conserved biodiversity, and grew organic. Brazil could feed 2 Brazils with nourishing food, not bad food. The world could feed 2 times the world population. They keep coming up with the figure of, we got to feed 9 billion. That's why we've got to force GMOs on you. No, we can feed 14 billion without increasing even 1 inch of farmland by intensifying ecology and intensifying biodiversity, not intensifying chemicals and toxics and corporate control. And it isn't just food and nutrition we produce more, and we don't measure yield per acre because yield is a measure of a commodity that goes to the market. We want to see how healthy is our food. So we measure health per acre, nutrition per acre, and on nutrition per acre, ecological farms perform better, industrial farms are very, very impoverished. They're producing nutritionally empty, toxic commodities. We want more nutrition, no toxics. They're giving us no nutrition, loads of toxics. And with the combination of emptying out the nutrition, putting in toxics, and then adding things that were never food in any culture, we have a new form of adulteration of our food. The creation of unreal food, fake food, pseudo food, which is why your conference on real food is significant, not just for you in Brazil. It is significant for the world. The word adulteration comes from the Latin term adulterare, which means to pollute or corrupt. Our food is being corrupted and polluted. It's being corrupted and polluted with agrochemicals that don't belong to food, being corrupted with GMO traits, viral promoters, antibiotic resistance markers, Bt toxin, herbicide resistance. These do not belong to food. But most significantly, the new products that are being pushed in the name of food are the basis of the disease epidemic we face. Take, for example, the substitute for real sugar. India is the home of sugarcane. That is where sugarcane was first domesticated. That is where we first learned how to make sugar. By boiling the sugarcane juice. Makes a wonderful jaggery, a gur. It's like a toffee. And then you can process it a little more, make it white, always with ecological ingredients. So first they brought white sugar, white refined sugar, as if blackness was a problem. And they created a poisoned sugar. And now they're taking it further with this mysterious chemical that has never existed in the world or in our bodies, called high fructose corn syrup, which is in all the food now. It's in every soft drink. Coca-Cola has increased its margins because this costs next to nothing. And yet, for us, it is a disaster because it affects our bodies in two ways. It pumps up the insulin, which then leads to the problems of diabetes, promotes fat storage, and it suppresses leptin, which is a food and appetite regulator. It tells us you've eaten enough. And by suppressing its functioning and our response to it, it makes us think we are hungry. So for children, it actually leads to addiction. That's why they add it even to salty food. Because the child then wants more and more because of this addictive character. This is a major reason for the rise in obesity, along with the issue of trans fats, etc. An International Journal of Obesity in 2008 said, the rise in obesity has gone exactly hand in hand with the introduction of this fake sugar called high fructose corn syrup. So one of the big challenges you will have in real food is to get high fructose corn syrup out of the food system. And the way to do it is because these corporations are so powerful. The way to do it is from the bottom up. That's what your movement is. Have the council say, we will not accept food with high fructose corn syrup. Promote the local food from the family farms. My dream is our seeds all come from farmers who are brilliant breeders, and we run courses for farmers for participatory breeding. I hope some of you will be able to come visit us. Next year, September to October, we do 1 month of intensive work on agroecology, the science and the practice, with living seed, living soil, living food, because food wasn't supposed to be a source of disease, it's supposed to be a source of health. Real food does give health. fake food gives disease. And look at the disease burden. Part of the result of destabilizing our metabolism is the rise in diabetes. In 1985, globally, there were 30 million people. It rose to 135 million. It's projected to be 380 million by the year 2025, leading to 4 million deaths. Now, there's a lot of false narrative around this, saying, oh, because of globalization, societies that didn't have access to sweeteners and oil are now getting it, and therefore they're getting obese. Every culture had its own cooking oil. Every culture had its own sweeteners. They came from nature, they were processed artisanally. And just like 500 years ago, a papal bull, 1493, said, go, conquer any land that's not white, that's not Christian, that doesn't have kings and queens of Europe, grab it on our behalf. That was the basis of how the world was taken away from the original inhabitants. And the law that came out of it used to be called, the jurisprudence was called terra nullius. Assume the people of those other cultures aren't people. Just assume they're not fully human. It's empty land because they're not fully human and you can take it. In the same way, there is this attempt today to make it look like our biodiversity, our food cultures, our knowledge doesn't exist. I call this the thesis of bio-nullius. That till the toxics of the global corporations come, there's nothing. And that is the challenge of real food, to reclaim both our biological and our cultural diversity. There's another false narrative. I don't really like the term lifestyle and lifestyle choices. Who would be so foolish as to adopt a diet of bad, disease-laden food when they had options of good food? This is not a lifestyle choice. It is an imposition. Just like 500 years ago we had a colonization, today we have a food colonization. And at least in my land, I know India was colonized through a free trade treaty of 1711 that the East India Company pushed on us. Today, free trade treaties are the method of colonization. Patenting seed, Monsanto wrote the law and started to collect royalties from our farmers, your farmers. Your farmers had a case against them, $2.2 billion of unjust royalty collection. I've had many cases in India. They are collecting such high royalties, they push the cost of seed up 80,000 percentiles and made seed non-renewable. Farmers got into debt. 300,000 Indian farmers have committed suicide because of the debt trap created by seed monopolies. And that is why, when Maria, you talked about the Terminator seed and called for maintaining the ban, that is an international ban, and not having Brazil subvert it, I totally stand with you. Because you cannot have a hunger-free Brazil while you support a technology in the hands of Monsanto. The Terminator patent is Monsanto. That will cause hunger worldwide. If farmers are committing suicide because they are paying such high royalties to buy seed every year, when seed, real seed, could be saved on farm, exchanged freely, give us real food. A test of Brazil government's commitment on the zero hunger is to allow no Terminator technology or impose no Terminator technology on the world, because what could be more anti-life? What could be more anti-life than the idea that you have to kill life's renewal? Terminator means kill the fertility of seed to renew itself, make it sterile. This is the ultimate ecocide. And just ethically and morally, even if there were no economic consequences, I would say, as moral beings, we must say no to the Terminator technology. And there are other things that need to go out from your convention. A challenge to the false solutions that are coming so fast. The same companies that gave us nutritionally deficient food, agriculture systems and processing systems that rob our food of nutrition, now want to push biofortification on us through genetic engineering. Two of the big campaigns I've been involved in for 15 years, the absurdity of a golden rice, genetically engineering rice to make it a little yellow, when one spoonful of a coriander chutney can get me all the vitamin A I need. When our amaranth leaves give us more vitamin A, and our coriander leaves and the drumstick leaves, the amazing moringa tree, 300 to 400% more vitamin A, but also other nutrients and taste and quality. This has not seen the day. It failed in India, it was rejected by peasants in Philippines, and now sadly the Gates Foundation is financing its trials and commercialization via the back door through little Bangladesh. This is a criminal act. If they are committed to removing nutritional deficiencies, let them give money to local communities to create gardens everywhere. Women to resurrect the knowledge of their biodiversity and nutrition. Also to have gardens in urban areas, but not only in urban areas, because the countryside will always be the primary producer of food. And then, another insanity, genetically engineering banana in India for iron. Banana is a lovely food. Alexander the Great, when he tried to invade India, even called it the food of the wise ones, which is why its name itself has the word sapienza in it. But iron is not its virtue. And even after 20 years of Bill Gates funding this project in Australia, after 20 years, they will reach about, it's 0.44 per 100 grams, it will reach 2, 3. When our turmeric gives us 67 units, our moringa gives us 28, Bengal gram leaves give 23. Diversity is the answer to malnutrition. Real food in the hands of real people, and knowledge sovereignty along with seed sovereignty and food sovereignty is the answer to malnutrition. But not just malnutrition, the disease epidemic too. And the disease epidemic, yes, obesity is one part of it. But cancers are other parts of it. Hypertension is another part of it. Cardiovascular diseases are part of it, because it's disrupting the regulatory processes of our body. This body is an amazing self-organized system, as is every living being, as is every living individual, as is every living culture. They are self-organized. And as self-organized, they know what they want to absorb and what they want to not absorb, which is why the Chilean scientists created the terms autopoietic and allopoietic systems. Autopoietic systems are ones which self-govern. Allopoietic are those which are controlled from outside. We today have a competition between food becoming a weapon, food becoming a source of control. Kissinger actually said this in the Vietnam War. Food is a weapon. And I take it further and say, and now they want to use seed as a weapon to control people. We will be free. Because freedom is too precious. And freedom is what gives us our cultures, it gives us our health, it gives us our livelihoods. And we will not allow freedom to be defined by the corporations through free trade agreements, where Monsanto writes the intellectual property laws, Cargill writes the agricultural agreement, and the processors who talk about value addition while it's value robbing talk about the sanitary and phytosanitary measures, the health standards. Their next desperate attempt is going to be to criminalize our freedoms. I built up Navdanya from 1987 onwards. The last 2 or 3 years have been spent on working with farmers and citizens across the world to defend their seed freedom as corporations try to write laws to make local seed illegal. I'm so happy the President talked about 480 community seed banks. I hope it will become 1 million community seed banks, because that's what we need. And wherever we became alive in time to expose this malintention of destroying the diversity that feeds the world, the laws had to be rolled back. It happened in India, in Europe, Colombia, wherever people fought against seed laws making local seed illegal. And the crazy food safety laws that make artisanal food illegal. In 1998, the soya lobby tried to take over India's edible oil market. They called India the El Dorado of soya. And very conveniently, they had local oils banned in the name of safety, saying if local oil was made in a local virgin cold press mill in a village, it's dangerous to your health. But GMO soya is wonderful. So I had to lead a mustard satyagraha because the women from the slums rang me and said, we can't eat the food cooked in soya. Our children are going to sleep crying. You've got to bring our mustard back. So first I did a study, then I organized. We brought organic mustard from our communities. I took a tiny oil extracting mill, took it to Delhi Hat where we have a cafe. I called the Chief Minister of Delhi, Sahib Singh at that time, and said, I want to gift you the first bottle of the Satyagraha oil. Satya is truth. Agraha is the fight for truth. Gandhi used this every time to fight the unjust laws of the British. Satyagraha. Your work to create real food in the countryside and the city is today's satyagraha against a brutal, unjust, unscientific, dishonest, undemocratic food system being imposed on us. And when we all join hands, I know we have the power to make the change so everyone, the last child, the last woman, gets real food. Thank you.
Concordarão comigo que mais uma vez, como nas conferências anteriores, acertamos em cheio na escolha de uma conferência internacional, conferencista internacional, que não apenas, o brilhantismo da Vandana, que não apenas nos ajuda a entender o mundo que se passa no mundo, mas também ilumina a reflexão sobre a nossa própria experiência.